Estamos en la casa de Andrew Root, periodista e historiador, quien ha sido un excelente colaborador de toda esta investigación que estamos llevando a cabo. Y bueno, queríamos tener el testimonio de Andrew sobre la historia de Isaac Newell y de su familia. Andrews, how was Isaac's family by the time he was born?
Well, his father was born in Essex, and probably to a fishing father who worked in the fishing industry. When he came to Kent, possibly because of that family connection, his father was a fishmonger, and he was living in Strood, and he probably wasn't earning very much money, and he would have been living in a rented house just off Strood High Street. And he then ended up marrying a woman from Higham, which is a village just outside the Medway towns. And at the time, according to the marriage certificate, he was living in Higham as well. This is Isaac's parents. They married in St Mary's Church in Lower Higham. And although they then appeared to be living in Strood for a while, they ended up, then his mother died when he was very young. By this time he had two other brothers, Isaac. Then they ended up moving to Higham, where they were certainly living in 1861. And his father was still a fishmonger at that time. They lived in a small terraced house, which in England is known as a 2 up, 2 down, meaning it had 2 rooms on the ground floor and 2 rooms on the next floor. It was a rented house, and it probably wasn't a very good house. He was quite probably poor, quite hard up, I would think. And the village of Higham in 1861 had a population of about 1,000 people, and it was very rural. Most of the people who lived there worked in agriculture. That would have been the biggest source of employment, and some people worked as servants. But all the indications are that they were not very wealthy, not very well off. And as we know, after Isaac left the country in 1861, he had probably been out of school by about 4 years at that stage, because I think it was common then to leave school at the age of 12. And he probably went to school in Higham. That would have been the closest school. And Higham was changing a lot at the time. A new church was being built in the village, a new school was being built in the village, and Isaac would have seen these things happening. And he would probably also have seen Charles Dickens, who lived perhaps 200 metres away in Gads Hill Place. There's a very good chance he would have seen Charles Dickens walking around the village, and quite possibly been to some of the sports events that Charles Dickens held in his ground. But it's a rural village. All the indications are that his father didn't have much money. And we can guess that even more by knowing that after Isaac had left the country, his father moved to another couple of villages, and he seemed to have a lower classification of trader. From fishmonger, he had become a fish hawker, which suggests that he was dealing with wares on the street rather than in a fixed place. And eventually his father was only about 60 when he appears to have died in the workhouse, which means he was probably very poor at that stage. So all the indications are that Isaac came from a very working class family without much money.
Okay. And Andrew, how do you think about Isaac Newell before go to Rosario?
What he used to do, maybe. He was probably only out of school for 4 years before he left. We don't have a record of what he used to do. It might be that he worked on farms in the area. Where he used to live backed onto a farm called Grove Farm, where there would probably been fruit trees and crops to pick in the summer, He may have had casual work on that farm or one of the other farms in the area. It was also quite common for people in Higham to work in either Gravesend, which is a bit further to the west, or the Medway towns to the east.
Bueno, good, Andrew. I repeat, very, very important information, and thank you in name of all the people, the Rosario City, and the fans de news.
Identidad Leprosa, el núcleo de investigaciones histórico-culturales del Club Atlético Newell's Old Boys.